Conversations with Danni Gyrl. Live DMEG radio on fire. You listening right? Where you see the hottest underground interviews, you better tune in to Conversations. Where they talk about it. No, it ain't the Breakfast Club. It's Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Nothing's off limits here with Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Nothing's off limits here with Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Nothing's off limits here with Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Nothing's off limits here with Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live. Live, 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 live. Danni Gyrl going live. Danni Gyrl going live.
Welcome back to the show, y'all. It is time for another episode of Conversations, and I am the host, Danni Gyrl, and we have a good conversation tonight. As some of y'all know, we started the Taboo Church Topics conversation last season, and I am here to continue it tonight. We still have 2 more episodes. Y'all let me know if y'all could hear me, because I don't know. I didn't get a chance to do a sound check before I started. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Okay, so thank y'all for tuning in tonight. We're going to really get into this conversation. I'm going to do a quick review of the conversations that we've already had. And then I am going to get into the conversation for tonight. And this is going to be really good. This is going to be really interesting. And I am excited to have this conversation with y'all tonight. So I have my notes, and I ain't gonna lie, y'all, I got a lot of notes tonight. I got a whole book over here tonight. So we're gonna really get into this conversation, and I hope y'all enjoy it. Leave your comments in the comment section, and we're gonna get into this conversation. So, oh, I don't see my little tablet holder. Oh my goodness. Okay. The conversation we've been talking about is taboo church topics, conversations you won't hear in the pulpit. And we have been over several conversations already. I really enjoyed having those conversations with y'all. We really got into it. It was nice to hear the opinions and some of the feedback that I got having those conversations. So I'm just over here messing up stuff. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to make sure all my devices is working properly, because they just don't be. Okay. So we have got into breaking the silence and why we needed to have these conversations, why churches avoid certain topics. The first topic that we really got into was mind and ministry. Sex and the saints. We talked about marriage, divorce, and intimacy, dating in the church, and conversations that they don't talk about. I really didn't get too much into the LGBTQ stuff, but we did talk about purity culture and masturbation and pornography. And I really appreciate the pastors and ministers that reached out to me about the masturbation and pornography. I really appreciate the feedback I got on that. It was nice to get it from a different perspective. So thank you to everybody that sent me any type of comment in the comment section on that video, or I did get a lot of text box messages, which I appreciated, with the longer in-depth perspectives. So I was nice talking about that with y'all. Then the second thing we talked about was mind and ministry, mental health and therapy, abuse in the church hurt, accountability. I really wanted to get into that because we don't have enough accountability when it comes to mental health in the church. And we really got into that narrative of praying demons away over therapy. And I enjoyed having that conversation with y'all as well. Episode 3, we talked about dollars and doctrine and church and money and how money is used in the church. We got a little bit into financial abuse and spiritual and financial manipulation. That was a very good conversation to have with y'all as well. And tonight, because that was episode 3. And tonight we are going to get into the subject of politics in the pulpit. I am very interested in having this conversation with y'all because this is something that I feel like we don't talk about enough. Politics, and when I say politics, we're going to get into 2 different types of politics tonight. We're going to get into national politics and church politics, and we're going to talk about politics in the church, politics in the pulpit, and how politics are dealt with in the church, especially the Black church. If y'all know anything about how I've been doing this series, it has been a focus on the Black church and the Black community. So we're going to get into that. And let's see. So where I want to start with that is why politics in the pulpit is a taboo subject. The phrase politics don't belong in church, and I'm putting that in quotes because that's how it is written. That is a quote often repeated, yet historically has been inaccurate, especially when discussing it in the Black church. For the Black church, politics has never been abstract. It has always been tied to survival, civil rights, voting access, education, and economic justice. The real tension is not whether politics belong in the pulpit, but which politics, whose interests, and who controls these narratives. And I like the way that it was quoted, politics don't belong in the church, because when you get into this and really read into this, politics plays a bigger role in the church than we really realize, and vice versa. Church plays a bigger role in politics than we realize. And some of these examples that came to my mind about politics and church that I'm going to go through with you, if you remember these things, I would like for you to tap in and comment and let me know. So the church has always been a political institution. It was always, back in the day, a place where Black people met for it to be a safe meeting place. It was always a place for communication, for people to meet as a communication hub. It was a space for leadership development and a place for political organization centering. During slavery, Jim Crow, the church was often the only institution Black people fully controlled. So the preachers were not just spiritual, also community strategists and community activists. Some examples of that were the Underground abolitionist sermons, the Civil Rights Movement organization, and voter registration drives. So the Black church has never really been politically neutral. It has always been a place where Black people gathered to handle their political business, or just to handle business, period, because it was a safe haven. So one of the things that I want to talk about that I thought was interesting was Barack Obama, Jeremy White, and the Black church. I'm sorry I paused on y'all like that. I'm trying to see if my screen is correct, but okay. A lot of people remember when Barack Obama ran for president, he had his longtime pastor, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, from Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago. He was endorsing Obama. Obama was going out to his church and things like that. And a lot of y'all remember that took a left during the presidential campaign, and it became controversial for Obama to be associated with Jeremiah Wright. Wright preached a form of Black liberation theology. And what that is it interprets Christianity through a lived experience of Black oppression. It emphasizes systematic injustice, racism, and economic inequality, and it frames God as siding with the oppressed people. The reason this became controversial was because sermon clips were circulated. And you know, when clips are circulated, they can be taken out of context. But clips were circulated, and the clips that were circulated included the critique of U.S. foreign policy, the condemnation of systematic racism, and it framed critics of what he said as anti-American. The sermons were not unusual. They were things that have been heard before in the Black church, especially within the Black liberation theology, but they were unfamiliar and threatening to mainstream white America. So, you know, anything that becomes threatening to mainstream white America, people will start to distance themselves from. And that's what Obama did. He basically distanced himself from his pastor during his presidency to control the narrative that was so controversial. Black churches speak differently than white churches. They speak differently than white audiences. Black churches are something that most people that have not been exposed to a Black church will probably not understand. The Black church covers so many things that most people, if you have not been exposed, you would probably just like be turned off to it. But all of the way that the Black church is set up has went all the way back to slavery, and that's why the Black church has become a hub for so many different things. If you notice, a lot of Black churches, especially larger Black churches, they have several different programs and things to help out people in the community. Most of these churches are usually in a community that is majority Black, and they usually do have some type of community hub, as far as like a lot of churches do food giveaways, clothing giveaways, different food drives during different holidays. And they're just places to go. Some have community centers where the kids can go. Like Black churches just have so many different things going on that that's what it ends up being. It ends up becoming a community hub for everybody. So Joe Biden in the Black church was the second analogy or example that I wanted to use. So I know a lot of people laugh because there was a video going around on the news at the time when Joe Biden ran for president, where he went to a Black church. I don't recall what the name of the church was, and I didn't get a chance to look it up. But at that church, he kind of looked like he didn't know what in the hell was going on. He was just kind of there, but he was on his campaign. And, you know, when they're running for president, they try to go everywhere that they think all of a certain racial or cultural group is to connect with them, quote unquote. And that's kind of what that was. It was more so of him going to the Black church trying to get Black votes. Okay, now I can see y'all comments. All righty. Let's see. Let me see Twan's comment. Black American politics. My screen is cracked and it just cracked some more. I'm gonna have to see y'all comments because they're not showing up on my screen. They're supposed to pop up on my screen. I don't know what the hell. Let's see. I can see it on my tablet. Black American politics have always been tied to our church. This was our only meeting place to plan our activism. And that is correct, Antoine. Um, the Black church is the center of a lot of things, which we're going to get into. And I want to go back to Joe Biden really quick. Joe Biden, like many Democratic politicians, actively courted the Black church during his presidency, trying to get the Black vote. He did campaign visits with Black congregations. He did speeches I'm sorry, y'all, let me get some water. He did speeches invoking faith language. And that's something we love to hear. We love to hear faith language. And he did appearances at church events, especially when it was election time. This is a part of a long-standing tradition where politicians seek moral legitimacy and access to Black voters. They want endorsements from influential Black pastors. But politicians often use the Black church votes and they don't transform anything. The promises that they make in the pulpit are not followed up by their policies. And the church becomes a political stage rather than a prophetic voice. And I have to agree that every time it's time for an election, people start courting the church. I like the way that's worded. People start courting the Black church. People that you will never see at a Black church any other time. It's like now is the time for us to show up and show out and try to get this Black vote. And they always use our vote and they don't make the changes that they promise. And I hate to say it, but Barack Obama did the same thing. And you would think as a Black man, he would have did it a little different. But no, he courted the Black people just as Kamala did. Kamala. They want to be involved with the Black people when it's time for a vote. Let me get to some of these comments. Hi, Miss Trudy. The same man who said you ain't Black if you don't vote for me. Yeah, Twan, that same man. That same man didn't do shit for us when he got our vote. So my question to you is, the people that are watching, I would love to hear your opinion. Do politics exploit the church's trust and authority? Do you feel politics exploit the church's trust and authority? I would like to know. Sound off in the comments. This is a power imbalance that we have. Churches need political access more than the politicians need accountability, and that's how exploitation occurs. So I'm going to have the quick pros and cons of the argument. Should politics be separate from the church? Hello, James. How are you? They give you phone numbers for contacting. As soon as you get in office, numbers change. Oh, that is so true. Now, that is true, Trudy. They'll give you their number, and then that's during that courting process. You know what? That's like when you meet somebody and y'all start dating, and then when they tired of playing with the mask on and they want to take the mask off, they ghost you. It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing. That's what that courting does. So this is my argument for separation of politics and church. Separation of politics and church. This is for the separation. Politics divide the congregation. That I totally agree with. Politics divide the congregation because everybody in the congregation is not on the same page, okay? Everybody in your church did not vote for Kamala. Don't let them fool you. It was some Trumpers in there, okay? The pulpit should focus on salvation of the soul and not political policy. Political endorsements by spiritual integrity. And churches risk become partisan institutions. This position often emphasizes personal morality over systematic justice. And that is the reason why this is for the separation. And you know what I have to say? When you combine politics and the church, it gets a little sloppy. It gets a little messy. Politics is one of those things you're not supposed to talk about. They tell you growing up, don't talk about politics, and somehow those two things ended up being fine. Okay, we go figure it out tonight. Wait, let's on. Yes, to a certain degree, they do exploit the church. Politicians see the church as a large voting pool. Yes, and that's my thing. It's like they come around for the vote, and then we don't see them again for a while. So against separation, these are not my reasons. These are the reasons that I found. Faith without justice is incomplete. I don't know if I like that. The Bible addresses kings, governments, and laws constantly. Now I'm going to have to do a deep dive on that, because as far as I know, most of the time when the Bible addresses any of those things, they're not literally talking about the lands of the law, but I'm going to have to do a deeper dive on that. Silence in the face of injustice is itself is political. And the Black church's history proves that faith and politics are inseparable. The real issue is not politics, but whether the church speaks prophetically or transactionally. Now, let me tell y'all something. And this is what we're about to get into with this next part about what the law says about church and politics. And let me tell y'all something. It's been some things that have been said over the years that are total lies. This is why I've been saying over the last few months that we need to do research and not just continue to regurgitate information that we hear. Why we need to pick up a book and read on our own. They always say that there's a separation of church and state. And people will tell you that it's in the Constitution, the separation of church and state. It does not appear in the Constitution. That phrase does not appear in the Constitution. The reason why that came to be was because in the First Amendment, it prevents the government from establishing a religion. And a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote described a wall of separation. There is nothing in the Constitution that actually says there is a separation of church and state. What it does say in the Constitution is that it restricts the government's control of religion, the government from establishing a religion, and it does not say anything about religious speech about the government. Did y'all get that? Okay. Hey, Jock, how you doing? All right, y'all. So this is finna get good. This is where I really wanted to get to in this conversation. I'm halfway through, so this is the perfect point for me. Antoine, I hope you still there. So, a lot of people wonder why mega churches don't take a stance in politics. When there's an injustice, they don't try to rally up and speak on the injustice. Why churches, and not just the Black church, any 501c3 why they avoid politics to a certain extent and certain situations. The reason why is because you get a 501c3 tax exempt status, you cannot endorse or oppose specific political candidates. What you can do is you can speak on social issues. You can engage in civic activities. You can preach moral perspectives related to politics. You can discuss public policy. But what it is a lot of these churches with this 501c3 exempt status are being funded by a bigger situation, and they don't want to shake the boat too much. They don't want to rock the boat too much where their 501c3 status gets revoked because they're interjecting into social issues. They would rather just be quiet, preach about God, and keep going. Does that make sense to y'all? Did I get that right? Your timing is good, Jock. I'm happy you tuned in. So that's why a lot of these people don't get involved in these politics. They don't want to rock the boat with that 501c3 status. What I also found out, and this was on my deep dive about mega churches. Y'all don't know. Sometimes I go down rabbit holes and do deep different subjects. And I went to mega church messiness. Bring that to y'all this season as well, because there's some things y'all might want to know about some of these mega churches. A lot of these mega churches, as far as like TD Jakes Church, Kenneth Goldstein, Joyce Meyer, a lot of the bigger fineries, Creflo Dollar, a lot of these connected situations, higher power, and I ain't talking about, a lot of them are connected to a higher power over their church, and they are restricted from talking about those things. They are Mike Todd, there's a couple other ones. They're restricted from talking about certain things when it comes to politics and social issues. And that's why they don't speak on it, or that's why they try to stay away from it. They're not allowed to endorse any candidate at all. And the social issues, they just try to stay away from because they don't want to rock the boat. When you have a church, like a mega church, where your congregation is so diverse, you don't want to do anything to upset one side or the other. So you just stay neutral. I think it's kind of like some punk shit, but yeah, that's just my opinion. Thank you, Trudy. I was trying to see if somebody can see what I be trying to say, because sometimes my words just don't come together. So it would seem they sold the people out for the dollar. Exactly. Yeah, basically. They're not going to do anything. Okay, so I'm going to tell y'all something. And this is just my opinion from me being in my mega church messiness stuff. As much as people don't like Jamal Bryant continues to rattle people up because he speaks on issues that the other people don't speak about. If you notice, he makes it his business to speak on issues that the other pastors and that the other mega churches don't speak about. And it's not necessarily that he's trying to shake things up per se. It's that he's speaking on these things because these other people don't speak about it. Now, the one thing that he did speak on that I was just kind of like, sir, excuse me, what's going through your head, was when he was talking about turning their land into a grow factory to give men jobs or something. I got where he was going with that, but I just thought it was kind of weird. But I got where he was going with it. But yeah, that's why Jamal Bryant is constantly controversial to other pastors on the things that they're not allowed to speak about or don't want to speak about. So yeah, that's what that is. When politics corrupt the pulpit, You create a danger zone. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier. Congregants get shamed for political differences, so they don't want to rock the boat on that situation, because you have the people that voted for Kamala, or whatever her name is, Kamala, I've heard it pronounced so many different ways, and the people that voted for Trump. You don't want to try to reshape parts of the theology with ideology and interrupting with the politics. You don't want to do that too much. Poor people are mobilized for votes but ignored after. And what I mean by poor people is people that live in a certain tax bracket, because everybody ain't poor just because you live in a certain tax bracket, but that's what I'm speaking specifically about, the tax bracket. They find ways to get to people that are more in the lower middle class and the poverty stricken people. They do more to get their attention, to get their votes. And then they don't pay them no attention. They make them promises that they're going to make things better, and then they pay them no attention after. So that was kind of what I was saying about courting the Black church. And it's called political brokerage. That's what it comes down to. So I want to transition this now from politics to church politics, because one thing that I wanted to talk about in church politics was women in the pulpit. That seems to be a topic that people don't talk about in the church, but it seems to be a touchy subject. I've heard a lot of opinions about women in the pulpit, about women being ordained as elders or bishops, about women preaching, about women being pastors, where it is biblically, which I didn't get a chance to get deep into that. But I have talked to some people about it, and it's interesting what... Okay, let me look at some of these comments. I done got lost in the comments. Views can alienate and cut off business. I like Giselle, Jamal's ex. Aligning the church with drug growth is thin ice. Very thin ice. You should not be talking about growing marijuana on the church's property. And yes, Trudy, a lot of broken promises. So I want to get into women in politics and women in the pulpit. Women make up most of the church. They make up most of the church. If you go to any church, you'll see that the women outnumber the men drastically. I just dropped my tablet. Ugh. Drastically. And with women making up most of the church, it's very controversial of where women stand as far as the pulpit goes. And I'm going to give my opinions tonight. They're going to be slightly controversial. I really don't care. Y'all know Couch Conversations. If you've been watching it, if you've been here before, you know I say how I feel. If this is your first time here, you just going to get a bar of how I feel. So when it comes to the pulpit, women are often sidelined or overlooked. They're allowed to serve everywhere but in the pulpit, it seems. But I've noticed more in modern times, you're getting more women in the pulpit, more women being apostles, elders, reverends, more women becoming pastors. I'm gonna tell y'all. I'm very big on gender roles. If this is your first time here on Couch Conversations, y'all gonna learn something about me tonight. I'm very big on gender roles. I believe that women have a job and men have a job, and I'm not ever gonna change how I feel about that. It is what it is. One thing that I don't agree with is women holding certain jobs in certain positions. And the reason is because women are too emotional. I don't like women in positions like cops. Women cops are too emotional. They take things too personally. I've never came across I ain't gonna say never, maybe once or twice, but I've never really honestly come across any female cops that weren't overly emotional and didn't take their job way, way, way too seriously. Um, I don't believe women belong in the pulpit, and I'm gonna tell y'all why. For a long time, I love to hear women preach, and I think it was just because they were women. Because I can't even really tell you too many stories or sermons that I've heard from women that have really stuck with me. I began to get turned off as an adult about women preachers, women pastors, because they're too emotional. There was a video that went viral at the top of last year of a lady in church giving a sermon, but during the sermon, she was basically cussing out her, and literally she was cussing. She was cussing out her husband's, I don't want to say it was mistress because I'm not sure if he had an affair with this lady, but the lady was contacting him. And she sidetracked her whole opportunity to minister to this room full of women to talk to this one woman about how she will whoop her ass. And I had an issue with that. And I noticed that a lot of women do this. They misuse the opportunities that they have to minister, and they lash out in an emotional way. Kim Burrell had a video that went viral where she was supposed to be ministering, and she was up there talking about people's hygiene. I'm not a big Kim Burrell fan, but I'm not gonna bash Kim Burrell. But it was that one video that bothered me, because you had this opportunity to minister to all these people who came to see you, and instead you're telling them about how they need a breath mint and how they need to check their hygiene, instead of giving them the word of God in that moment. And we're at a time that we live in where people need the word of God more than ever. More than ever. I've been looking at on TikTok how a lot of young people are starting to give their life to God. It's like we gotta make a decision. We gotta go one way or the other way. And it's like when you have those opportunities to minister and you call yourself someone called to be in that position, someone called to minister, you have to use that position wisely. And a lot of women misuse that position for lashing out at other people about things that have nothing to do with the ministry. I'm not saying that men don't do this, but I see it more in women. Women are so much more emotional about how they handle things, and it comes out in their ministry. Women pastors are more emotional. They take things more personally. And I understand it's hard being a pastor, period. But at some point, you got to set your emotions aside and think about the greater good and what you're really there for and what you're called to do and what your job is. But I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this and get out of my opinions. So, why the question posed was, should women preach? And I'm not saying women shouldn't preach. I just don't think that they should just constantly be in a position to go before people in an emotional state. Let me look at some of these comments. Jock, I'm glad you're still with me. Let's see, Trudy. There's a time and a place for that kind of stuff, retreat, seminars, etc. The influence you yield is a responsibility. Exactly. Um, People can say that pastors and evangelists, missionaries, things like that shouldn't be held to a higher standard. But when you put yourself in a position and say that you're called by God, that you've been called to do a work for God, there's a responsibility that comes along with that. I don't think a lot of pastors realize when you take on the responsibility of being a pastor, you are a shepherd. And people don't put that correlation together. A pastor is also a shepherd. If y'all know what a shepherd does, a shepherd, they go out and gather the flock and they protect the flock. And in the Bible, it tells you to leave the 99 to go get the one. A lot of pastors don't do that. They'll let the one leave and let the two leave and let the three leave and let the four leave and let the five leave as long as they have this 100 over here. And that's not what it's supposed to be. A lot of shepherds don't realize every sheep that's lost. Being a pastor is taking on a large responsibility, and a lot of women don't have the capacity to take on that responsibility. Sometimes women's emotions prevent them from being the shepherd that they're supposed to be. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Speaking of a shepherd, I've never really heard of too many women shepherds back in the day. Church should have leadership and influence over younger or lost women in the church. Absolutely. But I'm going to tell you something. This is the whole that sentiment. A lot of the women in church are lost. A lot of the women in church are trying to find something. A lot of the women in the church use retreats and things of that, and men do too, but it's more so the women, because you usually see women having these retreats, and they have these retreats for other women, and they talk all that single woman stuff, and they tell you to wait on your Boaz. And I know I had this conversation before about people telling you to wait on your Boaz. Listen, every man is not a Boaz, and every woman is not meant to have a Boaz. I need y'all to get it together, okay? Anyway, so a lot of people believe that the church is misogynistic, and they believe that the church holds women back. I see y'all start checking out when I start talking about women in politics and women in the pulpit. But yeah, a lot of women are needed in the church. That's why it's so many women in the church. They've always been the backbone of the church. Women have always been the backbone of the church. They have always been the people behind the scenes, putting everything together, putting the events together, voter registration drives back in the day. Women have always been the ones keeping the church together. But I'm sorry, y'all, we just need a man in leadership. We need a man of God. Let's be real specific. A man of God called by God needs to be in leadership. Just like the hierarchy of a marriage is God, man, woman, and children, I believe that hierarchy still spills over into the church. And I know that kind of sounds, but it just seemed like the church ran so much better when it was that way. I'm sorry, but it did. I know y'all tripping off of me, can't see up close with my glasses on. Women suffer from jealous ways. They do, and that comes out in their sermons. It comes out in their sermons. It comes out in their behaviors. I watched a video on TikTok of one of the pastors. After praise and worship, she went to one of the young ladies and was telling her basically in front of the whole congregation like she owed her an apology because she didn't like the way she spoke to her that morning. And like, what kind of shit is that? And the girl, you know what, I was not mad. While the lady was talking, the girl just got her stuff and walked on out the church. And I would have too, because I came in this morning and I sang praise and worship, and on my way to go sing praise and worship, I spoke to you, and you don't know what I was going through when I came in this morning, and you gonna get up in front of the whole entire church and tell me I owe you an apology because you didn't like the way I spoke to you? That's very, yeah, jealous, emotional stuff. That's, yeah. Thank you, Trudy. And you don't personally, listen, I don't, see, I'm trying not to go too deep off in some stuff and get myself in trouble. I don't really care for women pastors. I'm just going to say that. I don't. As far as women being apostles and all that, okay, I'm okay with a prophetess, but I just feel like women have their own titles that they should fulfill. What happened to the missionaries? What happened to the evangelists? What happened to the women's auxiliary boards? You don't hear about any of this stuff in churches anymore because everybody is a pastor, a reverend, an assistant pastor. Everybody got a clergy on now. There's nobody doing any of that stuff anymore. Like, so in some spaces, women were allowed to preach, but it was limited to women's services, auxiliary services, special occasions, might be Women's Sunday at church, and they were never really given full pastoral authority. And people think that inclusion without power is still inclusion, and to a certain extent it is. I don't think everybody needs to have a role of power. And I just think women are too, like I said, women are too emotional for some roles. And I'm not just talking about being a pastor or being a preacher. I'm talking about like being cops. I'm still kind of up in the air about EMTs, but you don't see too many female EMTs anyway. It's just certain positions women are too emotional to be in. I really trip off of some women in customer service. Some women are too emotional to even be in customer service. Some women need to be working from home. I'm sorry, they just do. Some women need to be working from home. Some women don't need any public contact at all, period. Honestly, there's too much dishonesty associated with being the pastor of a church for a woman to handle. Nothing brings emotion like lies. Ooh, I got to read that again because that is so true. There's too much dishonesty associated with being the pastor of a church for a woman to handle. Nothing brings emotion like lies. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like the casting out from the pulpit about stuff, like I can get up and go off on people in the pulpit about stuff from social media that they've seen. Just different situations. And it's so tacky because it's like, I came here because I needed a word and I didn't want to hear you talk about what Sister Foyle posted on social media that made you mad. Like, I don't care about that. And, it's very damaging. It's damaging because when you come into a place like a church, and I've talked about this before in this series, when you come into a place like a church is like a hospital. And I talked about this before. A church is like a hospital. And when you go into a hospital, you have the waiting room for the people that are just there passing through, coming to visit, the visitors lounge for the people that are for the sick people. You have the emergency room for the people that need help right now. You have urgency care for people that can just hold off a little bit longer. Then you have the people that are waiting in the waiting room to be admitted. But there's different level of care there, and they have somebody to handle all those levels of care. And then you have people that are just there. Sometimes you have homeless people in the hospital. Sometimes you have crazy people in the hospital. You have just stragglers. Like, the hospital has all kinds of things in there, and you have to be prepared to deal with all of those things. But at the core of it all, you have to remember you're in the hospital and people are there because they're sick and they need help. The church is the same way. People go to the church because they're looking for something. People are reaching out to God because they need something, and they're trying to feel him or feel closer to him, or they need something from him. When people go to church, they don't want to hear about the other stuff going on in life. They are only there to get the treatment for what they need the treatment for. And that's where you're supposed to be coming in, giving them a word, giving them some worship, giving them something so that when they leave, they're not in the same condition that they came. Do you know how it feels to go to the hospital and sit there for 2, 3, 4 hours and then leave in the exact condition that you came in? You so mad because it was a waste of your time. Church is the same thing. It's the same thing. And I keep trying to explain this to y'all, and I know I've said this 2 or 3 times in this series, and you might hear it again in the last episode of this series. But y'all have to remember, church is like a hospital. Y'all have to be careful how y'all treat people at church. Y'all go to church with y'all attitudes and be stank with y'all attitudes, and y'all speaking to people with y'all attitudes. And the way you spoke to Sister So-and-so might be the thing that pushed her over the edge tonight. Because she went to church to get a healing, and you came in there with your stank-ass attitude and said some shit to her that she didn't need to hear. Like, we have to be more careful. We have to be more careful about how we treat people in church. And women are too emotional to be in leadership spaces. I am sorry. Y'all can get mad at me. Y'all got my number. If you don't have it, it's going to flash at the end of the show. You could call me if you want to talk about it. You can send me an email, a DM. Women are too emotional to be in leadership spaces in church. It's just too much. And the more I see these videos, and I don't take everything on social media to heart. I don't. Because I know sometimes people are being performative. But when I see women doing things on social media that has them acting emotional and saying erratic things and lashing out at people when they should be taking that time to minister to a room full of people that came in to get help, it bothers me. When that lady cussed out that lady over the pulpit and walked that floor telling her how she was going to whoop her ass, and you in church, somebody, you going to whoop their ass? When you supposed to be ministering. We don't care that lady was hitting your husband up. You take that up with that lady and your husband after church. You don't address that over the microphone. That's not what we came here for. And women continue to do this in these spaces. They continue to do this in these spaces. And I'm not saying men don't do it, but mostly it's men that are emotional. And we already went over the fact that emotional men are usually raised by their mama. So yeah, they're just showing the traits that their mama showed. Let me get to some of these comments. I can't even see them all. Apostle Huggins. I'm gonna order some more candles from you. I need some more candles, Apostle Huggins. The business of the church is tough. Your uncle is a pastor, and the scrutiny you deal with isn't for everyone. And I understand that. I understand that too. They revive and restore, yes. Some things shouldn't be addressed from the pulpit. They should not. And I'm sorry, they should not. And to hear women addressing other women from the pulpit or addressing personal situations from the pulpit, it bothers me so bad. It bothers me. You have, and usually it's a room full of women that you came to see. You have a room full of women here that need to be poured into. And you talking about whooping somebody's ass. That is insane. That's diabolical. That's diabolical. Confusion is the playground of the devil. Yeah. And people do. They come torn and broken, and they don't need to hear nothing unnecessary. Let me tell y'all something. And see, y'all know I don't mind telling my personal business at all. I really don't. When I came back from Vegas, I was in a bad spot. And one thing you don't want to hear, you in a bad place mentally, you in a bad place emotionally, financially, physically. One thing you don't want to hear is somebody telling you something you need to be doing or something you should have did different. And I've told this story before, and I'm not going to say who it was. And I love the person, and we got past it. I did praise and worship one Sunday. I was asked to do praise and worship, and I got up and did praise and worship. And when I was done and church was over, and this has happened to me twice by two different people, somebody said something about what I had on. The first time I did it, I had on some jeans that was sliced up in the front with holes in them. They were inappropriate for church, and I only wore them to church because I didn't have nothing else to wear. My plan wasn't even to be at church, but I went, so I wore what I had. I was asked to do praise and worship. They said something to me about my jeans after. Don't get up and do praise and worship in those jeans anymore, and something. And I went home that Sunday, and I was so hurt because I was like, I took what I had, and what I had on, did praise and worship with a willing heart. And then I couldn't even get off the parking lot without somebody criticizing what I had on. And the second time it happened was a similar situation. Somebody said something about the outfit that I had on after I did praise and worship. Let me tell y'all something about me. And I'm going to be absolutely honest because, see, I grew up in the church, and God knows my heart. No matter what I have done, no matter what I continue to do, no matter what I do unconsciously, God knows my heart. And it has been Sundays. I have been literally been out partying all Saturday night. Came in with the sun and got up, got myself together and went to church because I felt like that's where I needed to be at. I remember one time I left church, and I'll never forget this. I left church and I went to the weed man house. And I hadn't even went home, nothing. I literally left church, drove straight to the weed man house. And when I got there, his girl told me I was a hypocrite. And I said, why do you say that? She said, you go to church every Sunday. You get dressed up every Sunday to go to church. And then when you leave church, you come over here every Sunday and you come buy weed. I said, baby, the Lord know my heart. I said, and God knew in the womb I was going to smoke this weed. He knew everything I was going to do before I was even born. And he also know I show up at church every Sunday, and I be there with a willing heart. At that time, I was singing in the choir. I was doing praise and worship. It wasn't nothing they could ask me to do at church, and I wasn't going to say yeah. I was like one of the most willing people. I participated in everything. But it was like, I knew then, God knew my heart. Now, I wasn't that was 20 something years ago. I was nowhere near in a place mentally and spiritually where I am now. And God still know my heart. But it's like people want to criticize and give you their version of what's going on. And I know this is kind of off the subject because we started talking about women and being emotional in politics. But we got to leave people alone. We got to let them find their way. We can't be critical of people and they walk with God. I've had a lot of people tell me about how they feel about me and my relationship with God. I've had people tell me all kind of things. And I just sit there and listen. I don't even say nothing back. I just sit there and listen. And for some reason, people think I don't pray. They think I don't read the Bible. They think I don't talk to God. I don't know. I don't know why, but yeah, I have a very good relationship with God. I know people always come to tell me what God told them. If God told you something to tell me, it's just confirmation for something that he already told me. So like God talks to me too. He ain't gonna talk to you and not talk to me. He ain't gonna tell you about me and not tell me about me, right? Um, so yeah, I just, I need people to understand like everybody has their own walk with God. It might not be the traditional walk that you used to, or it might not be what you're used to seeing, but sometimes y'all just gotta let people be people and stop being so emotional. Y'all emotional. Okay, let me read some of these comments. Ooh, I can't even see. Lord have mercy. Can't see with the glasses or without them. Let me see if I can turn this light up. Okay. Oh Lord. People come. Y'all done lost my vision that quick. Hi, David. David Jackson. How you doing? What thou needs, the Almighty shall provide. Amen. We grew read on King Solomon tomb, the weeds of wisdom. You can come to my church, no judgment. Pastor said, leave people alone on the tire. Amen. Everyone isn't on the same level. We have to learn to meet them where they are. Yes, I'm big on meeting people where they are. The clothes don't make you save. It's your heart and your obedience to Christ. Amen. They need to be healed on, not beaten up on. Amen. Right? People come in torn and broken, and we don't need to hear unnecessary. Amen. I appreciate these comments. Y'all really getting it in these comments. Let's see. It's in the Bible. Okay, so yeah. I'm supposed to be talking about women in politics. But yeah, this is what it all boils down to is women are very emotional. That's why I told that story. Both of those were women. Women are very emotional at unnecessary times. And emotional women in leadership can be the downfall of a church. I don't think I understand that. I've seen it firsthand. An emotional woman can be the downfall of a church. If she does not know how to talk to people, if she does not know how to regulate her emotions to be able to talk to people, it can definitely be the downfall of a church. Your people will leave. And like I said, being a pastor is being a shepherd. You're a shepherd with a flock. You're a shepherd to the sheep. And you need to be able to go and leave the 99, get the one. And most pastors are not willing to do that. And sometimes you'll end up losing 5 more behind that one. So I got to pay attention. Let me see. I'm trying to stay up with these comments. Let's see, did I get all the comments? Emotional women in leadership can be dangerous. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. So yeah, I've seen it firsthand on a couple of different occasions with women in leadership, women pastors not knowing how to deal with the congregation, how to address the congregation, getting upset over things that should not be getting upset over, beating up on somebody that's already broken over the pulpit, lashing out over the pulpit. It'll leave you with an empty church. That's all I'm saying. Now, from a legal standpoint, there's no law saying that women can't be pastors. From a religious standpoint, it's what you believe. When I was younger, I used to hear my grandmama say she didn't want no lady pastor. I don't want no lady pastor. I don't want no woman pastor. And she's still like that. My grandmama 85, and she still don't want no woman pastor. And I used to always wonder why, and I understand now. She didn't even have to tell me. I understand. But when I asked her, yeah, they too emotional. My grandmother also says, and I love to hear her say this: women should not be in the pulpit flouncing around in front of all those men. I love when she say that. Good night, Jock. Have a nice day at work tomorrow. It's a denominational thing. It absolutely is. I noticed a year or two ago was a big thing about the lady preaching at the Baptist conference. People were upset about that. Um, you know, I'm gonna leave y'all women alone. I know my space and place. I'm not called to minister. I'm not called to preach. I'm not called to do any of those things. My calling is music, and I minister through music. I actually was the minister of music at my church, and a lot of people did not understand my version of music ministry. But my business is a music ministry. It's Divine Management. It has that name for a reason. Everything we try to make sure we bless. If you've been to the block party, you know we have opening prayer at the block party. Gospel artists bless us and get us through the day. But yeah, my business is ministry. My music is ministry. And even with myself, I've had people tell me things that I should be doing or places I should be, and that is not my calling. I appreciate the prophets, the pastors, the apostles that have poured into me and let me know that I'm walking the right path. Sometimes I question myself and I question my decisions and my dreams, because my business was my dream. But yeah, I've always questioned if I was doing the right thing. And thank you to the people that have poured into me and let me know that I am on the right path and I'm doing the right thing and that I am in the right what is the word? The right category of ministry. Let me look at some of these comments. Okay. I didn't caught up. But yeah, politics shapes pulpit access, and women internalize spiritual inferiority. Leadership gifts are suppressed. Abuse goes unchallenged. Young girls never see themselves reflected in authority in the church. And this creates a spiritual dissonance, church disengagement, religious trauma, and a pipeline of gifted women leaving the church. And this is where a lot of women that are gifted leave the church and they go become a pastor, etc., etc. But that's not necessarily their calling. Everybody calling is not to be a pastor. Just because you can preach don't mean you're supposed to be a pastor. Just because you can preach don't mean you're supposed to be an apostle. Just because you can preach don't mean you're supposed to be a reverend. Like, there are missionaries that preach. There are evangelists that preach. Mothers of the church that preach. I've heard like the choir director preach. You don't have to necessarily have that title. But if you're going to get the title, know what to do with it. Know what your title is. Stop becoming a pastor if you don't want to be a shepherd to the sheep. I'm going to say that again. Stop becoming pastors if you don't want to be a shepherd to the sheep. A pastor is a shepherd. Your job is to be a shepherd to your flock. Your congregation is your flock of sheep. You are to be a shepherd to them. And some of y'all ain't ready for that job. Y'all just want to get up and preach on Sunday. Ministry isn't always in the pulpit. It's many different levels of ministry. It is, and that's what I had to find out. Everybody made me feel bad when I stopped going to church when I was in Vegas, and they were telling me to find a church and do all these things. But that's when I learned that my ministry was not in the church. that's when I learned that conversations can be had if you just meet people where they are. Couch Conversations has been a very big outlet for ministry. I thank you to the people that support it too, because I believe it was David Jackson that sent me a message. But somebody sent me a message about me. It might have been Charles Brickmore. Somebody sent me a message about me preaching. I do not preach. I do not preach. I do not get up before congregations. I do not do that. I'm not a real big public speaker, but Couch Conversations has been an outlet for me to have conversations with y'all and to minister to y'all, to minister to each other, as well as the other stuff that I talk about on here. I try to make sure that we have conversations about church and about healing and about things that are associated with the church that we all have dealt with or most and suffered from. Church hurt is a big topic on this show, which is how I got into the taboo church topics in general. We talked about abuse earlier on in this series. So this has really been my outlet for me to minister about the subjects that are on my heart. A lot of things that we talk about on this show are taboo subjects because they are things that people don't really like talking about. Even with the other topics that I speak on, narcissism. People don't like talking about narcissism. It's a mental health problem, and there's narcissism in the church. There's spiritual narcissism and spiritual manipulation that goes on. There are topics that we need to talk about. So thank y'all for being here and having these conversations with me and allowing this to be a platform where we can minister to each other. I really want to say thank you to Apostle Huggins, who has become a faithful viewer of the show. I really enjoy having your opinions. Even some of the sidebar conversations that we've had that I've had to ask questions and you've had answers. I appreciate that. I love having ministers and people of the church that watch the show talk about different topics, not only about church topics, but other topics as well. I like to have these conversations with them aboard. My mom, she doesn't come on as much as she used to, but my mom, she used to be on the show and we used to use her as one of our spiritual guidance counselors when we have questions that we want to ask about certain topics to do with church. We like to have people that can answer them from a different perspective. So I thank y'all for that. Thank you for tuning in, Trudy. I love you too. And I will talk to you soon. Issues that keep getting swept under the rug. Yeah, those are the conversations I like to have. The conversations that get swept under the rug. And I went over time tonight, but this was a very good conversation, and I thank y'all for participating. So let's get to our closing for tonight. Politics affect women in the pulpit because the pulpit is power. This is why we have the politicians that want to date and court the black church when it comes to elections and things like that. The pulpit is power. As long as the church negotiates with political systems that benefit male leadership, women's voices will be restricted. I don't know if that's true or not necessarily, but that's what my closing says. When the church chooses, this was the closing that I wanted y'all to hear. When the church chooses prophecy over preservation, justice over comfort, women don't need permission to preach. They are already called. Women have always preached in the church in some way or another because they've always been the backbone of the church. But I just don't think that they should be in a space of leadership. I just think they are way too emotional. I thank y'all for tuning in while we talked about all the things we talked about tonight. And in a couple weeks, we're going to get back to this. We still have one episode left, and that is the new generation of leadership. We're going to get into that. And I'm going to have David Jackson come on for that. I'm very interested in having him on the show. He'll be turning 18 next week. So he will be the person that I would like to talk to about, especially he does the new generation of leadership. So I would like to talk about that and see how some of these younger preachers feel about the church and where it's going and where they can take it to. Because at the end of the day, that's who we're leaving it to. Like, a lot of the older people don't like to get out the way, but that's how we bridge that we have in the church. We got to let these younger people, we got to give them space for their calling. We got to give them space to their anointing. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Thank you, everybody that's Coversations at gmail.com. You can also Instagram Conversations Live. Make sure to check the site divinemanagement.weebly.com information on Couch Conversations and anything DMEG. You can also subscribe on YouTube to The Real Danni Gyrl. Exclusive content on YouTube. That's where I put all the exclusive. A lot of people were asking about different things pertaining to like videos that nobody has ever seen. Just him doing behind the scenes rehearsals and things like that. I can go check that out on there. Also, stay tuned. The Danni Gyrl show, February 10th at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure to download the Podbean app and submit your music to therealdannigirl@gmail.com. And also, if I get enough gospel submissions, I will start a gospel show. But I need to have y'all submitting y'all gospel music. So if you know any gospel artists out there that might be interested in getting some radio play, getting some exposure, let me know. And we can get that together. But right now, we just going to stick to the Danni Gyrl show. And when we get enough submissions, we'll go gospel. It's been on my heart to do that anyway. I've been hearing some really good gospel music, and I want to support some of the artists that are out. Shout out to the Zion Messengers. I shout them out when I can, because I have to say the Zion Messengers as a whole and them individually have supported me on 90% of my endeavors since 2021. So shout out to the Zion Messengers. I love y'all. Shout out to everybody that's been supporting my endeavors. I really appreciate you, especially my kids. Shout out to my kids. They put in a lot of time with me and my business. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, or you would like to be on the show, make sure to give me a text at 702-578-6716. And thank you to the people that have sent me suggestions. I'll try to find a way to format your suggestions and do an episode for you on the things that you said. So I do take show suggestions. I appreciate y'all for the show suggestions. I try to cater to my audience. And yeah, I appreciate y'all. Make sure to join us next Thursday. Where is my little? Here we go. Join next Thursday p.m. with special guest Lou Dowdy of Lou Productions next week, and we will talk to her about and what she does in the community. So those of you that were about missing the award show in November, I was fresh out the hospital, so be here to present me with my award next week. Thank you for even making this happen. Not only the award, but for making it happen that I could get the award on the show. I really appreciate her. Y'all stay tuned for that. Also, just Thursday, February 5th, Pacific, two guests. Jay spelled his name wrong. I'm sorry, Jay Flash, Jae. I just noticed that. Jay Flash, we'll be talking to him. He just launched Flash Drive LLC. So we'll see what he has coming up with his company. Talk to him about his new album. He is dropping his last album as an artist, and we're going to talk to him about it. If you have not heard any of the songs that he has dropped previously, you can check them out on the Podbean app. I play him on the Danni Gyrl Show, which will be back February 10th. So y'all make sure that y'all tune in for that. Thank you to everybody that continues to support me on all my platforms, YouTube, the Danni Gyrl Show, Couch Conversations, the people that consult with me, just everybody. Thank you to everybody that has supported DMEG in any way. I'm looking forward to having y'all at the block party in June 13th. Make sure you save the date. From 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., we will be having our 5th annual DMEG block party. So this is my 5th anniversary, y'all. I never thought I would see a 5th year because it wasn't supposed to be that, but here we are. It will be hosted by Black Thompson, which I am super excited about because he is actually one of my favorite hosts. And we will have the band Pneumatic. Y'all know I love my band, and they will be here. We will also have a DJ, which I'm not sure who it is because I'm not in charge of any of that. We will have the fashion show. Gigi is curating the fashion show once again. We have some super dope boutiques and designers that have signed up. We still have spaces available. We still have vendor spaces available. We still have VIP tickets. For those of you that don't know, entry is free. It is a free event. I suggest that you get a VIP table if you're coming in a group. That way y'all can have somewhere to sit and enjoy the day. If you're going to be here all day, we have a day package that you can buy for up to 10 people. I suggest you get it. Everybody put in $15. The 10 of y'all and get the day package. You get a canopy, you get drinks, you get food, you get a whole bunch of stuff. So swag bags, all kind of stuff. So yeah, y'all might want to pitch in for that. But I'm excited about the block party, and I'm looking forward to having everybody here. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody and everybody seeing what we're doing for our 5th year. We will have It's All About Support here all the way from Las Vegas. She will be one of our media coverage teams. Ascot Records will be here with their media coverage team. So, yeah, I'm excited about the block party. Y'all know we have some vendors that are going to be there that y'all have seen before. Shout out to Candy Bacon Designs. She'll be one of the sponsors for the fashion show. So, yeah, y'all just stay tuned. Every week, I'm going to have a new announcement for y'all. I got a big surprise for y'all next week. Since Lou going to be here, I'm dropping good news. And I just thank y'all for supporting once again. Thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight, having this extremely good conversation. This was a conversation that we needed to have, that I enjoyed having. Politics in the pulpit, you know, we don't talk about certain conversations enough. So we're going to have more taboo conversations here on Couch Conversations. And I'm going to tell y'all something. I kind of want to get back into a little bit of gossip like we had on first season. So y'all stay tuned for that. I think I'm gonna have like one Thursday a month where I do like gossip or something, just so y'all can clock what's going on. But anyways, thank y'all. Love y'all so much. Thank y'all for all the feedback. And like I tell y'all every week when I end the show, peace and have a divine night.